What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 10 of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. And Matt, I heard we have some exciting news today. This guy, I'm going to let you announce it, but this guy, he is someone who I've watched much film on over the years and excited to have him part of the team.
Yeah, really excited to announce that Cary Kolat is formally joining a partnership with RUDIS, and we're going to start unveiling some new content pieces that he's going to be taking ownership of. The first one is going to start this Wednesday. It's going to be Ask Kolat, and it's going to give an opportunity for the listeners out there.
Can I steal like the first 10 questions? Because I heard people get to ask you questions, and I would like to get numbers 1 through 10 if possible.
Why don't we just do an exclusive Ask Kolat featuring Ben Askren, right?
Askren Kolat question.
Yeah. So obviously, we've been doing things with Cary in a more informal way. He's been on our team as one of our RUDIS legends, but we've been talking over the last couple months about doing some formal content pieces with us. He was really excited to do that. So the first content piece will be Ask Kolat, and then next week, maybe the following week, we will actually be releasing another podcast just featuring Cary. So
wow, that's awesome. And so I got to sit with Cary. I think it was 2 years ago at Super 32. Whenever I took a bunch of my older guys down there, we tried to tour all the different campuses. NC State, they did Duke, UNC, we did Campbell, and so we sent a bunch of the athletes with one of the assistant coaches, and I got to sit with Cary for about an hour and just chat with him. And so I got to ask him a whole bunch of questions there. And it was a blast. Obviously someone who's definitely a legend in our sport, someone who I kind of grew up, wondering, and, to a certain extent, I know Flo did the piece on him, but he's kind of enigmatic because he was in and out. He kept trying to come back out of retirement. And so I got to sit with him and ask him questions for an hour, and I thought it was awesome. If you listen to me at all, I can't stand it when people do wrestler speak. Every opponent's tough. I got to focus on my next match. I love it when they actually give in-depth, real, true answers. And it was like everything Cary said was well thought out. It had good reasoning, and I just enjoyed getting to sit with him in an hour and talk. It was so much fun. So I know I am going to personally enjoy this segment for us.
No, obviously Cary brings a wealth of knowledge, but like to your point, he just speaks the truth. Whether you like it or not, he speaks the truth. And I think it's going to be a fascinating journey to see what he's going to bring to the table, and just to get a little insight into his mind and get a perspective of, his unique perspective on the sport of wrestling. I think it's going to be really, really a neat opportunity for the listeners and people that are fans of wrestling. So, absolutely. And also, so you didn't get to see his new wrestling room.
I haven't looked at a video, and I haven't been there, but so they showed us the diagrams when I was down there, and then I saw they just put a bunch of pictures up of their grand opening last week. So
yeah, so we were down there a couple weeks ago. It's an amazing room. I think Cary's obviously building something pretty special down there,
absolutely.
And I'm really excited to see what he's doing with the program the next couple of years.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I enjoyed so much about sitting down, and it's funny because I actually think this is going to be my next Monday, Mental Monday, not to give too much away to the people, but a lot of wrestlers, for whatever reason, they carry a chip on their shoulder past their competitive career, and I think it's typical for high school kids to have that me against the world type of mentality, and in a certain sense, I think it's almost healthy when you're young. But once you get older, if you don't get that chip off your shoulder, it's just weird. It's weird, and it's really negative towards life. And, for a while, I feel like Cary might have had the chip on his shoulder. But when I was sitting down there and talking to him at Campbell, it was just like he had just such a gratitude for everything. He just had such a positive outlook on everything that was going on. He was so happy with what he was doing at Campbell. And you could tell he just loved what he was doing. And that was kind of, what I took from it. And it was it's just such an important lesson for people to take. And I think they'll probably get that vibe out of him when he comes on the questions with Kolat.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, if anybody deserves to have a chip on their shoulder based upon some of the things that happened to him in his international career, it's Cary. But yeah, I mean, he's in a great place. He loves Campbell. I think, being down there a couple weeks ago and seeing everything he's got going on and the administrative support he's got, I mean, he's in a great place, and really happy for him. Yeah. But so that's one. I guess that's one of the first gifts that we could give heading into this week.
That's a great gift. Gift of knowledge. Gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, I mean that's priceless. But the other thing is, we've been having a lot of people talking after our last podcast. Here at RUDIS, we don't do sales at all. We do it once a year. And so I know everybody heading into this weekend with Black Friday going on, we will be having an exclusive sale over Black Friday and this weekend. That's for anybody that wants to get a great deal on our products, and anybody that's an exclusive member to our RUDIS site, you will actually have early access to get some discounted gear. And
I thought you were gonna put the big one out there. Come on, man, stop stalling.
Well, the big one's coming. The shoe will be out there. The World Championship.
There we go.
The Kyle Snyder World Championship shoe will be out there in a limited run. There'll be 1,000 available. So it's obviously
and you guys were slow playing me, Matt, because I started asking about them back at the World Championships, and you guys made it seem like, hey, we only made these for Kyle, and I kind of knew you guys were full of crap, but you didn't tell me that. So this is exciting. I know. I thought they were super slick. I love the blue and red pair. I think that's key American, but I don't even know, would you call it gold and black, or what color is that?
It'll actually be blue and gold. Will be.
It's a dark blue?
Yeah, it's actually a dark blue and gold. The one that Kyle wore at the World Championships, and that's the one that will be released in a limited release, 1,000 pairs. I know a number of people have been asking about the red and blue model, but we're just going to feature the ones that Kyle actually wore in competition.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. I'm excited for those. I'm going to try to get me a pair. So yeah, I might try to know somebody up in RUDIS, and we'll see what happens. So let's get into wrestling. We had so much going on this weekend. The last couple of weeks we've been kind of talking. We've been talking about trajectories of teams, how teams are getting put together, and now I think it's fascinating because we saw a whole bunch of dual meets, so we're kind of getting to see what every team has to offer. But before we get into that, Matt, can I complain? I try not to complain too much. Can I complain about one thing?
Okay, let me have it.
I hope I wasn't like this. Because it has now been 7 years or 8 years since I've been college coaching. But I watched, I think, in their entirety, 4 duels this weekend, but I watched more than that, bits and pieces. And some of these college coaches are just so whiny. I mean, they freaking whine about everything. And, it almost makes you appreciate, like, Kale just sits there and doesn't do anything. Well, obviously it's because his guys are so good. But there's a way, like, obviously a ref's going to botch a few calls. And there's a way to argue about a few calls. But somebody like this, I'm just going to call him out. Nate Jackson from Princeton. I was at the Wisconsin duel yesterday. He literally whined about every single call. And it was, for example, the Princeton 141 pounder, the Wisconsin guy got tired. He was stalling. He got 4 stall calls against him, a warning and 3 points. Okay? And they were whining for more stall calls. Well, when their upper weights were egregiously stalling and they got called twice, not 4 times in a match, they were whining about that too. And it's like, buddy, you can't have it both ways. Like, either you're happy about the 4 stall call match and you're okay with a 2 stall call match, but you can't whine about both of them. So I think some of these college coaches, and that obviously that's one guy I'm picking on, but I saw it in many duels, just incessant whining towards the referees about every single call. It's frustrating for me as a fan to watch. It's kind of annoying. I don't know how you feel.
No, for sure. Well, number one, when you're looking at the ref, the one thing that I always wanted was, as long as there's consistency there, with the way he calls a match.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't match in and match out, I'm completely fine. Whether that's a slow takedown, he's a slow takedown guy, a slow back point guy, or he gives out quick stall calls or gives out slow stall calls.
I love quick stall calls. That's the best.
Yeah, which is great. But as long as he's consistent throughout the match, I never had a complaint. It's just those times where he kind of contradicted himself or wasn't consistent, I would have a problem with that. But yeah, to your point about coaches whining, it's kind of contradictory to what we preach to our athletes all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't show emotion. Don't let a call affect you. Just stay in the game, keep doing what you're doing. But then, in the heat of the moment, these coaches, they ditch out all their coaching advice that they're giving to their kids and they start coaching on emotion. Yeah. And it's like, emotion is never going, emotion rarely ever benefits you in a high pressure situation. Would you agree?
Oh, I've done so many mental Mondays on that. I always joke, Matt. I said, like, these parents, because I'm coaching on youth and high school tournaments. These parents at high school and youth tournaments going blah 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 to little Johnny. It's like, okay, that does nobody any good. Just shut up. I mean, think about, Matt, if you had, if I came to RUDIS HQ and one of your salespeople is calling someone and I'm saying, make the sale, do the call, sell up, sell more, tell them great. Like, that, are they going to do a good job of what they're doing? No, they're going to be like flipping out what's going on and they're not going to get anything done. And so to think like that is somehow effective in a wrestling match is ridiculous. So,
and a lot of times, with Nate Jackson, he's young to coaching, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times when you exit the competitive realm and enter the coaching realm, the element of control is outside of your hands, right? And so it's like I can't really control anything. The one thing I can do is maybe project my voice and evoke some emotion or attack a ref because I can't actually be physically out there, executing these techniques. And so they're like, this is my only outlet. It's hard to contain myself. But on the flip side of things, with the more experienced coaches, I think.
And Princeton's head coach was very under control, composed, and everything. It was, and Joe Dubuque was kind of upset sometimes, but Nate Jackson was upset the whole time.
Yeah. And I would strike that one up to me.
He's young. Second year, I think. He's young. Year out. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would think, and I saw this throughout the weekend, there were I think 4 matches where I saw there was a unsportsmanlike conduct point taken away, lack of mat control.
I think Oklahoma State yesterday there was a team point, wasn't there? Right away.
Yeah, 133 in the Fix match.
That was a takedown too. That was crap. I'm gonna complain about that call too. That specific scramble situation drives me up the freaking wall. I hate
without a doubt. So in those situations, I think it's warranted when a coach comes off the bench. He gets emotional. He's trying to send a message, right? And I mean, I think a lot of these experienced, very mature coaches, they're kind of premeditated when they say something to a ref. They're trying to.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
They're doing it for a reason, and there's a method to their madness. Sometimes it is out of emotion. Sometimes there's just a flat out bad call, like in the Okie State match yesterday. And that was totally warranted. I would have come unglued myself. But yeah.
Okay, so I think it's more like the stalling calls and the edge, especially with and that's kind of honestly the governing body's fault because you never know what's going to happen on the edge. I see it called every which way. And to a certain extent, because there's so much ambiguity and it's so crazy and so scary, you do see a lot of people not going out of bounds because the guy that's back to center will not push the other guy out of bounds because he's like, shit, I might get called. They might circle. I might go out of bounds. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So there's definitely less going out of bounds than there was, which I guess that was kind of the point of it, right?
No, for sure. It's almost like these guys are wrestling in purgatory when it comes to the out of bounds lines.
It really is.
What do I do? I can't step out, but I can't push back in. Or this, same way with the offensive guy. Do I push too hard and get a stall call, or do I let him just come back in and control the center? It's like, there's a little bit of ambiguity still out there as far as the out of bounds goes.
So I that rule's kind of having it's growing on me a little bit. I don't love it. I don't love the step out idea. I know some people are pushing that. So I guess we'll just leave that as is. So let's go. I think that we kind of alluded to this, but the Oklahoma State Minnesota, that was kind of I would say that I don't know if you want to say the biggest duel of the weekend, but I think you're going to have what is the essentially coming out party or debut. Obviously, Daton Fix debuted the day before. Technically, Gable wrestled in the Open last weekend, so not technical debuts, but essentially coming out parties for two guys who I feel like are going to be transcendent in the sport of wrestling, who have already probably, if you go just accomplishment for accomplishment, they're probably both top 10 high school wrestlers ever, and they both looked fantastic. I mean, do you want to speak first on Daton's performance, or you want to go right to Gable?
No, let's go with Daton. I know you were a little bit hard on Gable last week, and I was kind of defending him. I'm
going to kind of be tough on him again, I think.
All right, that'll be interesting. So yeah, let's talk about Daton. Let's start with Daton.
I thought everything. So okay, I could go. And obviously, I've been watching Daton for many years, as most of us have, because he's been everywhere doing everything, winning. I thought great performance. I think his one limitation is he doesn't have a great leg attack, but the one way you can really kind of negate that in folk style is by pressure. And you saw how he put a veteran-like pressure on Lezak, and that the second takedown he got at the end of the second, which actually should have been his third takedown, because the other one was definitely a takedown. I loved the amount of pressure he put on him. I loved how composed he stayed on bottom, and you can see he just has a feel for the bottom position. And a lot of people, they like to call that talent, right? But Daton's been working hard at this forever. And so the way I see it, the way he had that feel for bottom to just keep his shoulders out of the near fall position and get the reversal, that's a winning mentality. I mean, Daton likes to win all the time. And so when he gets put in a bad position, he doesn't say, oh, shoot, I'll just not get there again. He's going to say, how do I win that position? And he gets back in there. He tries again, and he tries again, and he tries again, and he tries again. And then eventually he gets that feel for how he's going to, swivel his hips out to the outside and put the pressure back in to get the reversal. So I thought really good performance all around from Daton. I was happy. I was really sad him and Gross didn't go at it. I hear Gross's injury is fairly serious. So, I guess maybe we'll see that one at the Big 12 championships or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen sooner rather than later, right? At some point it's going to happen, and hopefully Seth Gross gets healthy quickly. I know, as fans, we want to see the best matchups all the time, but you want to see the best healthy matchups. So I think that was the right call by Coach Hahn to hold Seth out of that match. But to your point, I think if there were any questions about Daton Fix, he answered almost all of them yesterday, right? I mean, it's not just his hand fighting. I would almost call it his body fighting. He creates so much pressure throughout his entire body. Like, he exerts his lower body into his hand fighting.
Yes.
And you could see it taking its toll on Lezak, especially late in the second period, early in the third period. Obviously, a lot of people were saying, okay, well, we know that Daton Fix is a superior freestyle talent. Let's see what he does with two of the top guys in the sport in the top position with Seth Gross and Lezak, right? Yep. And I was really, really impressed how he was able to hold position, anticipate where Lezak was going. And at the moment where Lezak thought he had him, he swiveled his hips and changed his hips over for the reversal. I mean, that was really, really impressive. And then I think at that point, it looked like Lezak was kind of worn down a little, but then Daton showed not only is he superior in parterre and freestyle, he showed a lot of really good tools on top in folk style. I think that third period. So I thought it was.
So he both got away from bottom against Lezak, who, people are arguing that Gross is that much better. Obviously, Gross is really good on top, but Lezak is a freaking animal on top. I mean, think about do you remember that last match against Piccinini last year, where I think Piccinini was up by 6 or 7 and Lezak turned him? like 2 times or 3 times in the third period to tie it up, and then I think he went on to win it. I mean, Lezak is really, really good on top. They don't call him the backpack for nothing. And
no, for sure.
The other one, Daton looked fantastic in the scrambles. I mean, just all in all, those scrambles they got in, he was outstanding. Lezak made a bunch of good moves too. He's a great scrambler. Those were highly technical, highly proficient scramble positions that both of them were just flowing through. I was really engaged in those. I loved them. And then, he wins the one. And then, Matt, this is the position I was talking about. If you guys want to go back and watch this match, but when so what happens is they pass the leg the wrong way. And so they end up with their opponent's leg between their legs, right? But then they're facing belly down, okay? So they're like knees and hands on the mat. So usually if you get behind the arms, it's a takedown, okay? So not only is Daton all the way behind the arms, he's all the way behind the legs. He's all the way behind his whole body, and the wrestler on the bottom is facing the mat. And just because he is reaching through his legs to grab a leg, that is not control in any way, shape, or form. Think about it conversely, Matt. If your guy was on bottom, okay, you're coaching now, your guy's on bottom, and he reaches back through his own legs to get a hold of the other guy's legs, does he even have anywhere close to control?
No.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
I mean, that was an automatic too.
But referees don't call. I flipped out at Flow Nationals last year because my guy was sitting like that with another guy, and they refused to call the takedown. And it's just like, that is so obvious to me. That's such an obvious. If all the scramble positions, you're behind both arms, you're behind both legs, and because for some reason they're reaching down between their legs and grabbing your leg, you're not going to call that a takedown. Like, that is a takedown in every sense of the word.
And the ref that was calling the mat is one of the top refs in college wrestling.
Yeah, I don't think it's a judgment call. I think who's ever on top there is telling the referees that is not a takedown. But that situation, show this podcast to the referee governing body. That's a takedown. 10 days, absolutely. 10 times out of 10,
for sure. And I think this is where we're getting in a little bit of a sidebar about reviewing actual points being scored. But I think this is absolutely a case where you absolutely have to review it. And I think that there needs to be an independent reviewer. I don't think the mat official should be the person that reviews his call. It should be an objective bystander, because a lot of time when you're caught up in the moment, and when the ref's reviewing it, he's reviewing it through his own lens, right? How he would actually call the takedown or not, right? But in this situation, so when you're reviewing it as an official, you're still going to review it with the same thought process in mind, as opposed to an independent person reviewing the call. I think they would see it and be able to call it a little bit more objectively. But I thought, hands down, for sure.
But maybe, I think that's, like I said, I don't know that that's a judgment call. I've seen that situation called similarly many, many times, to where, right, the referees, what do you call it? The governing body? The organization? Right?
Yeah.
They have specific things that they focus on. And I think they're telling these referees that is not a takedown. Don't call that a takedown. But it is a takedown, and they need to call it as such.
So I think coaches, what they typically do after a weekend like this, Chuck Barbie, former head coach at West Point Army West Point, he is now the head of the rules committee. And so typically what they do, especially within the first 2 months of the season, when they're trying to dial in and get down the clarification procedures, you'll send these clips to Chuck Barbie. He'll review them. He'll talk with the head officials in the country about this, and they'll probably make minor tweaks. So I would think, case in point, with a situation like this, they would send this clip out to Chuck.
Yeah,
and he would review it. And I would anticipate that there could be some clarifications on situations similar to this moving forward. That would just be my best guess.
I would love to go sit down with a handful of the top referees and just go through the scrambles and go through the process of what's actually happening, where are the outs, what's going to happen next. and what's control, what's not control. Because, I think one of the things that kind of hurts some of these referees is they didn't wrestle in a time period when the scrambling was prevalent. And so a lot of them don't have the ability to anticipate what's coming next in certain situations where they're scrambling. And, especially with the instantaneous takedown rule, which I don't love, but that's the rule. You really have to be able to, as a referee, you have to be able to anticipate what's going to happen next. So, out of this scramble and be ready to call those takedowns or call those points. So
no, I agree.
I would love to be able to do that. I don't know if I don't know if anyone will ever invite me, but I'm open to come if the referee and governing body or whatever want to come or want to invite me.
I think that would be a great idea. So can we talk about, I thought the next match.
Brock versus Mckee?
Yeah, Brock versus Mckee. I thought that was one of the most entertaining matches that I've seen in quite some time.
Well, that's what those guys do. That's like, I mean, how many times have those two wrestled? And that's what they do every time. And I do believe this was Mitch McKee's first folk style win against Cade Brock. I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
No, it was. He's beat him in freestyle, but that was his first folk style win. But that was just, I mean, if you want to grow wrestling, that's how you do it. You put two guys out on the mat that are going to just scrap, throw caution to the wind and just go at it for 7 straight minutes. I mean, that was just great entertainment. Just from sometimes I've been in the sport so long, I don't tend to enjoy it. I break it down I do, but sometimes I view it from a technical standpoint or from a strategic standpoint. That was a match where I'm like, I just became a fan of wrestling. It was just highly entertaining. I love the way they got after it.
And honestly, Mitch McKee has had a lot more success in freestyle. Obviously, been a world team member, and he has such a great front head pinch and such a great gut wrench. And so, he's never had the success against Cade Brock in folk style. I think, one of the things obviously is he just sometimes lacks the ability to go get takedowns. But his scrambling and his pace are top notch. I mean, you could put him with the top in the country as far as it comes to scrambling and pace. So I think those guys always put on a show, and I thought it was a great match. Also,
I thought Cade Brock looked very comfortable and a good size 141 pounder. I know there's some questions about him moving up to 141, but I thought
I was disappointed that he got tired. He looked really tired in the match to me, and I always kind of cut him slack because I knew he was cutting pretty hard weight to make 133. And so I know when people are cutting weight hard, it's very hard to be in shape because of the 1 hour weigh-in. And so I always kind of gave him some slack because he would get tired in matches. So I guess I was a little disappointed to see him. Did you feel like he was really tired in the third period, or was that just me?
I thought so, but as a former coach, one of the things that I factored in is when I was building out my training calendar was actually that period of November. Yeah. I really wanted guys to wrestle their way into shape because I thought it was, I think when you're not quite in peak condition, you become battle tested in your mind and body.
That's good.
A little bit more. So I never wanted my guys to be in great shape in November because I wanted them to be in positions where they really had to dig down and fight mentally and physically. They weren't at their best. And so I wanted them to kind of wrestle their way into shape through the month of November. I don't know if that's John Smith's philosophy, but
the Oklahoma State Cowboys are never in great shape in November. So I think.
But I tell you what, by and large, the one thing that I was really impressed with Okie State, I thought they out physicaled Minnesota.
Yes.
For the majority of the match, which you wouldn't think is the case. Typically, when you think about the Okie State guys, they're very savvy with their technique. They're very slick. But I was really impressed with the physicality of the Okie State team yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to hear one of my brother's funny theories, Matt? Kind of goes along with what you just said. But you said, my goal wasn't to get my guys in shape by November. Max always thought that there is this notion that some teams underperformed at the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, just on a general basis.
Yep.
And Max always thought that it wasn't that they underperformed, but there's a lot of like, I don't want to say not talented, but the smaller programs who have to do more with less. And so they just work their ass off. You know, like say like a Bono at SDSU, right? He didn't have the best talent. He just worked his butt off. And so teams like that, they just work hard. So they're in shape in November. So in November and December, they win a whole bunch of matches that they're probably not supposed to. And so they get ranked fairly high. And once you get ranked fairly high, you kind of stay up there. You know, it's hard to move back down too far. And so then come NCAA time, you retain that higher ranking. But by NCAA time, everybody's in shape. And so where those guys who maybe weren't quite as good were winning matches because they were in shape in November, now those teams like in Oklahoma State who have highly skilled guys and are now, and then by March they're actually in shape, it's just that the other guys come back to the median. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense?
No, that makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, that was my brother's theory on it, is that it wasn't that teams underperformed. It was just that they overperformed early due to other factors, and then they came more back to the median.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have Max do a Mental Monday on that.
Yeah, but I don't know that I agreed with him. Well, I mean, I agreed with what happened, but what I didn't agree with was that and I've actually never heard anyone say it the way you just said it, that I wanted my guys to have to dig deep to win. I always just felt like, and this is the way I competed, I always felt like, hey, if I'm going to go compete, I'm going to be at least a little bit prepared. I'm not going to go in there completely unprepared. And obviously, I realized that, you can't wrestle at your peak more than a couple times per year, so there's no point in trying. But I'm also not going to go in there completely unprepared, cut weight terrible, train terrible, and then expect to go have good results. And so, I see where that thought process is coming from. I just always had issues with it myself.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're disregarding the other aspects. Obviously, your weight descent has to be on point. Obviously you've been working on technique in the preseason, in the summer, even in the first couple weeks of the season, making adjustments. So you're technically prepared. Physically, you've made your weight cut. I just didn't, from a cardiovascular standpoint, I didn't want my guys, because like you said, you can't maintain that peak for 4 months. And so I was like, okay, as long as we're technically prepared, as long as we've taken control of the things we control, like our weight descent, then once you get in deep water, that forces you to make the right decisions when you have to dig down and fight. Now it forces you to execute technique in the right ways. And if you can do that when you're not physically or cardiovascularly at your best, I always thought that's where you could jump levels early on in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Another example of the getting in shape early, the one that was really annoying to me a couple years back was NC State. Do you remember that one year where they had a great season and they were just ready to wrestle the whole season, but they just didn't have any superstars. And so they had a great season. I want to say they were up to rank like number 4 maybe or something to that effect. And then they didn't do well at the NCAA tournament because they didn't have the big guns that they needed to have, and everyone kind of crapped on them like, oh, NC State crapped the bed at NCAAs. And it was just like, no, they just had their guys ready to wrestle all year, and they just didn't have some of the big guns that they needed to score the big points at NCAAs, and that's how the NCAA tournament works. And so I guess that would be another great example of kind of what Max was saying.
Yeah, no, I think that was the year that they had the argument to be the number 1 dual meet team, right? The way that fell out.
I think so. And you're right, because they beat Oklahoma State and Iowa that year.
They did. They beat Okie State and Iowa, but they ended up they didn't put NC State up against Penn State.
Yeah,
right?
That was it. Yep.
And that's the true matchup that should have happened, but much like the BCS and how they kind of structure the system to get the 4 teams that they want into with the matchups that they want to, I think it just was coincidental that Penn State and NC State didn't get to match up against each other. But yeah, to your point, then I think Pat had his guys ready to compete, and they competed well at the NCAA tournament. They just didn't have the level of talent in a tournament setting as opposed to a dual meet setting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we took a big long circle there. Remember a while back we were talking about the Oklahoma State Minnesota duel. So we got to get back onto that. We're gonna be pushing almost everything back to our next show, but it's whatever. Let's talk about Gable. I you know what? I was kind of hard on him last week. I'm gonna be hard on him again. He hit one down block go behind, and I don't know how Derek White stayed on his back. And then everyone was freaking jacked up. I got a little jacked up. I was watching the match with my daughter. I'm like, nice, Gable. And they didn't do anything. And it's like, I get that he didn't have to do anything to win the match.
He didn't have to do anything.
But wouldn't it have been nice to see him like kind of open up, blast a few takedowns, party on him a little bit, and then maybe say, this is my house? That's what I would have liked to see.
He did party on the house. He dominated the number 3 guy in the country.
It was one move, Matt. It was one move. Come on. This wasn't
the Cuban proved in the World Finals you only need one move to win a world title, right?
Okay. There's like dominating someone, and then there's like Zane Rutherford, Jason Nolf, Ed Ruth, Spencer Lee. I don't want to pick all Penn State guys. Spencer Lee. Dominating people. That's like dominating to me. And so, I get that it's heavyweight, but I would have liked to see Gable get, another takedown, another 2 takedowns, and maybe end the match on top. I would have liked that a lot.
No, I agree. And hopefully he grows into that, but it's not like White got any closer throughout the match.
White didn't get close to scoring. He didn't sniff a takedown.
He didn't sniff it. I mean, it was complete domination. I get where you'd like this guy to go run up the score and pin, tech him, do whatever. But
wouldn't that be awesome?
I was impressed. It would be awesome. And I think he's capable of it. And I get where you're coming from, because when you see a guy like Stevenson with the skill set, the athleticism, the technical proficiency that he has, like, you're like, hey, keep doing it. You showed you could score at will if you want to. Yeah. Keep doing it. Hopefully he does. But also, he dominated by just completely shutting the other guy down, which sometimes that's lost on people. They just think domination is just by how many points you throw up on the board. I thought he dominated in a fashion that, I mean, White's got to be, he's got to be looking in the mirror like, what do I do? Like, this guy took everything out of my game. I tried everything I could. I couldn't even sniff it.
Yeah,
so
I mean, get close.
That's another form of domination that people don't talk about. So I get what you're saying, but
it's like dominating but not dominating. I guess I see your point. I see what you're saying. I guess we'll slightly agree to disagree. And obviously, I'm kind of being a little bit of a hater here because Gable's so good. I mean, we're talking about most likely the most accomplished high school wrestler of all time. But I get that that's a true freshman wrestling number 3 Derek White, but we saw him wrestle at the senior U.S. Open. We know how good he is. I'm considering picking him to make the 2020 Olympic team, and so I would have liked to see a couple more takedowns. I thought that would put the nail in the coffin, man. I thought it was like, look, he can't get close to scoring on me, and boom, I can score on him if I want to. And maybe it is in this day and age, because if a lot of our listeners might not remember back far enough, but the type of domination that Spencer Lee or Zane or David Taylor or Logan Stieber were doing, that didn't happen 15, 20 years ago. I mean, even if you look at Kale's bonus rate, it doesn't sniff what some of these guys today are doing. So maybe I'm just getting spoiled as a fan of wrestling who wants to see domination. Maybe that's what it is.
I completely agree. And I think there's healthy competition going on throughout the country. These guys all know each other so well anymore. They've wrestled together. They see each other on Flow all the time. They're on Instagram. They're on Twitter. So I think there's a healthy level of competition, like raising the bar amongst each other. Like, oh, Zane, you're doing this? Well, Spencer Lee says, well, I'm going to do this. And Spencer Lee sees somebody else setting a higher bar and is like, no, I'm going to set the bar even higher. So I think, the level of competition amongst these guys, even outside of their weight class, to see who is actually the most dominant, it has been one of the greatest and most refreshing things that I've seen, because it's true wrestling. You're seeing true skill on display week in and week out. And, maybe Gable's smarter than all of us. Maybe he's just teasing us. Maybe he's just teasing us, right? Said, hey, I know you're going to be asking for more. I'll give it to you, but I'll give it to you when I want to give it to you.
I'm trying to find Kale's stats online right now, and I can't find. Hold on, let's see if I can find. I can't find his bonus rate anywhere. I'm looking for it. I know it was high, but especially for his era. But when you compare it to what people are doing today, it's kind of no question. So, wait.
I think that just harkens back to everything that Penn State's introduced in the last decade, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were the ones that said, hey, keep up. You want to score points? Good luck. Keep up. And they've kind of set the precedent on throwing the gauntlet down there. This is the way we wrestle. We wrestle for 7 minutes. We score for 7 minutes. And, then I think it's trickled down to everyone else in Division I and in wrestling, that now you hear guys talking about it all the time. It's like bonus points. If we're going to win a national title, it's going to come down to bonus points. It's not just, it used to be certain numbers of All-Americans, certain numbers of national champions. Now it's coming down to, well, you better have those things. You better have All-Americans, national champs, but they better be scoring bonus points. And, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Google search this is hard, man. I can't find it. Okay, so let's do this for the last part of the podcast. We talked about Kale, we talked about Gable, and talked about the heavyweight weight class there, because Derek White was number 3 and Gable kicked his butt. So really, who you have above him? You got Sam Stoll and you got Nick Nevels. Well, here's the problem with Nick Nevels, Matt. Nick Nevels got his butt kicked by his teammate Anthony Cassar yesterday, 7-2, in a match that I can't find because it was on some weird streaming service. And
completely dominated.
But right? From all accounts, complete domination. So if you're a ranker, where do you go with the rankings this week? So last week it was Stoll, then Nevels, then Derek White. Where do you go this week? Do you put Gable at number 1 right away?
No, I don't think you can do that, because he doesn't have as much of a sample size as. Do
you leave Stoll at number 1?
I think you have to leave Stoll at number 1 until proven otherwise, until you get a head-to-head between those two guys, or Stoll gets beat, or Gable continues to rack up a series of impressive wins similar to this. Then I think you can make an argument. But based off one match, as impressive as I thought it was, I don't think you can, you throw Gable to the front of the line and say he's the number 1 guy. I think Stoll's there.
Well, look, Cassar looked good, man. I mean,
looked really good.
I'm sorry. So not this weekend, the previous weekend, because obviously I didn't see his match this weekend.
I mean, he's had 2 equally impressive, weekends to open up the season. I think you definitely got to throw him in the top 5. You know how these ranking guys go. I don't think that there's going to be too much of a shuffle. I think you insert Cesar into where
Nevels was.
Nevels was, right. And I think you could. I doubt they jump Gable all the way to number 2 right away. I mean, I think they'll want to see a little bit more sample size, but top 5 for sure.
Sure.
Right.
So Minnesota's they're at the Cliff Keen. That's 2 weeks from now, and then they're at the South Beach Duels, which I don't know. Obviously I was not there, and then they have Iowa at home on January 13th. So I guess that'd be Gable versus Stoll right there for the number 1 ranking.
Yeah, I would think as long as Stoll holds serve here for the next month and a half, he'll hold true to the number 1 ranking until proven otherwise, right?
Yeah.
How do you take something away if he hasn't done anything to warrant it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Let's see. So I'm gonna see if they got anyone tough. So they got Purdue this weekend. They got Iowa State, Lehigh, Midlands, and then Minnesota. So I guess we'll probably first see those guys. Stolen. Gable January 13th in Minnesota.
Stoll will have a good test against Wood, right, from Lehigh.
Yeah, Wood's scrap. He's top 10 guy.
Yeah.
And then the Iowa State guy he's not very good. Purdue, I don't believe has a really good heavyweight, and I'm not sure which heavyweights will be at Midlands. I don't like the South Beach duels because it takes a lot of the heat off of Scuffle and Midlands. Usually, you had most of the best guys split two ways, and now it's kind of they're taking 12 good solid teams down there. So I guess I don't know where Hamida's number 4. I don't know where he's at, if he's at Midlands or Scuffle or where he's at. Then Jordan Wood's actually number 6, and then Jerry Hino Campbell is number 7. So yeah, I suppose we'll see a few of those matchups. Matt, we have so much to talk about when we come back on our next show. We got Iowa over Princeton. Wisconsin had 3 dual meets this weekend. I want to talk about Nebraska. They've been struggling recently. We got 2 ASU duels. ASU lost to UNC. Ohio State, they've been struggling also. We got Virginia Tech. They lost 2 to Missouri and Northwestern. So we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. And I will catch you in a couple of days, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one.